It's 10:20. Means it's 4:20 somewhere. If you got one, spark up. Cloud. Alright. Now we are on to part 15 of When Will Jesus Bring the Pork Chops? Let's get to it.
Wouldn't it be interesting if the only way you could die was that suddenly your head blew up? If there were no other causes of death, everyone died the same way? Sooner or later, without warning, your head simply exploded. You know what I think? I think people would get used to it. I believe people can learn to take anything in stride if they think it's unavoidable. Picture a bunch of guys singing Happy Birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Charlie. Boom! And Charlie's head blows up. But all the candles go out, so it's actually a form of good luck. And everyone applauds. Of course, there'd be an occasional downside. God, another head? That's 2 this week. I just had this suit cleaned. But we'd learn to deal with it. Let's say you were sitting in a restaurant with your girlfriend, and the waiter was reciting the special.
We are actively dealing with something right now that we have to learn to deal with. It's not going nowhere.
Tonight we have the marinated bat nipples on a bed of lightly sautéed panda assholes. Boom! The waiter's head explodes. I'll bet you wouldn't miss a beat. Honey, did he say bat nipples or cat nipples? We better get another waiter. And some fresh salsa. I'm not eating this stuff. He was holding it when he blew. So anyway, I'm allergic to bat nipples. I think I might go with the free-range penguin dick. Or the deep dish moose balls. How about you? Wait, hold still. There's a little piece of eyebrow on your cheek. There, I got it. By the way, honey, what wine goes with brain? When I watch news tapes on TV of the Intifada from Palestine, and I see the Arab kids throwing stones at Israeli tanks, I always have fun watching for the kids who are left-handed, because left-handers have a kind of natural curveball. It's really interesting. I can't wait till Major League Baseball comes to the Middle East. Incidentally, I also noticed that Arab kids usually throw in a high arc, whereas the Catholic kids in Northern Ireland throw more of a line drive. Either way is all right with me, as long as they're accurate. Kids are great.
Yeah, that's a tough situation over there. I personally blame the British. They created the problem when their empire fell, and they did what they did with the region. But anyways, let's go.
Hi, I'm Bud, president and head doctor of Bud's Medical Center. Come on into Bud's. This weekend we're having a special on head injuries. Any sort of head injury you got, from a black eye to a completely caved-in skull, just $1.50 this weekend at Bud's Medical Center. We'll also give a free estimate to anyone who's bleeding. So if you're sick, injured, diseased, hurt, maimed, disfigured, or just plain don't feel good, come on into Bud's Medical Center. Bud's, where all the sick people go. Wouldn't it be weird if they just buried you alive when you got to be 65? If that was the deal for everyone? Right after your 65th birthday party, they came and got you and dumped you in a big pit with a bunch of other people your age and threw in all your birthday presents and buried you all alive. Wouldn't that be weird? Jesus, I'm glad they don't do that. That would be weird. But sooner or later, we'll have to do something like that. We'll have to. We can't take care of old people as it is. And there are going to be millions more of them. Good early medical care is a mixed blessing. It leads to too many old people. What are you going to do with them? No one wants to take care of them. Their children put them in homes. Even the people whose job it is to take care of them in the homes don't give a shit. They abuse them. No one cares. It's my belief that sooner or later we're going to have to start killing old people before they become a burden. One good thing, though, we'll save a lot of money on Social Security, and maybe the country won't go broke. There's always a bright side. The custom of observing a moment of silence before an athletic event to honor dead people strikes me as meaningless and arbitrary, because if you'll notice, only certain people get this special treatment. It's highly selective. Therefore, I've decided that someday, when the time comes that every single person in the world who dies receives a moment of silence, I will begin paying attention. Until then, count me out. It's ridiculous. Here's what I mean. Let's say you live in Cleveland and you decide to go to the Browns game. There you are in the football stadium with a hot dog and a beer, ready to enjoy the action, and a somber-sounding public address announcer interrupts the festivities, intoning darkly, "Now, ladies and gentlemen, we ask that you remove your hats and join us in observing a moment of silence for the 43 unattractive, mentally retarded, overweight Bolivian dance instructors who lost their lives this morning in a roller coaster accident at an amusement park near La Paz." Apparently, they all stood up on a sharp turn and went flying off, willy-nilly, into the cool, crisp morning La Paz air, and, being heavier than air, crashed through the roof of the funhouse, landing on several clowns, killing them all and crushing their red noses beyond recognition. Snickering is heard in the crowd. The American announcer continues. And ladies and gentlemen, lest you think this amusing, lest you think this a time for laughter, I ask you please, to put yourself in the place of a bereaved Bolivian who may be seated near you this afternoon. Try reversing places. Imagine yourself visiting Bolivia and taking in a soccer game. Imagine yourself seated in the stadium with a burrito and a cerveza, ready to enjoy the action, and a somber-sounding Spanish public address announcer interrupts the festivities, intoning darkly, "Señores and señoritas, we ask that you remove your sombreros and join us in observing un momento de silencio for the 43 mentally retarded, overweight, unattractive American meat inspectors who lost their lives this morning in a Ferris wheel accident at a carnival near Ashtabula, Ohio." The Spanish announcer continues. Apparently, the huge wheel flew out of control, spinning madly, flinging the poor meat inspectors off willy-nilly into the hot, humid Midwestern air. And being heavier than air, they crashed through the roof of the carnival freak show, crushing the dog-faced boy and destroying many of his chew toys. And let's say as you sit there in La Paz listening to this, you find yourself seated next to some Bolivian smartass who's giggling and poking his friend in the ribs. May I suggest you'd be highly pissed at this lack of respect for Americans? And might I add, rightly so. And so, ladies and gentlemen, considering the many grieving Bolivians who may be seated among you today, and trying to keep in check that normal human impulse to laugh heartily when another person dies, let us try again, really hard this time, to observe a moment of silence for the 43 unattractive, mentally retarded, overweight Bolivian dance instructors who went flying willy-nilly off the roller coaster in La Paz, not to mention the poor unsuspecting clowns who at that time were innocently filling their water pistols. You can see the problem either announcer would face. The fans would simply not be able to get into it. But I understand that. I can empathize with the fans because, frankly, I don't know what to do during a moment of silence either. Do you? What are you supposed to do? What do they expect? Do they want us to pray? They don't say that. If they want me to pray, they should ask. I'll pray, but at least have the courtesy to make a formal request. But no, they offer no guidance, no instruction at all. I honestly don't know what to do. Sometimes I resort to evil thoughts. I wish my seatmates ill fortune in days to come. I fantasize about sitting naked in front of the Lincoln Memorial and becoming sexually aroused. I picture thousands of penguins being hacked to death by boatloads of graduate students. More often, though, I wind up bored silly, searching for something to occupy my thoughts. One time I inventoried the pimples on the neck of the man in front of me, hoping to find one with a hair growing through it so I could quietly pluck it out during the confusion of halftime. On a happier occasion, I once found myself staring at the huge but perfectly formed breasts of the woman to my left, her fleshy mounds rising and falling softly in the late October sun, and my thoughts turned tenderly romantic. Holy shit, look at the fucking knobs on her. Great fucking knobs. I think I'm going to go to the refreshment stand, buy myself a weenie, and hide it in my pants. Then, during halftime, I'm going to whip out the weenie and force her to watch while I eat the bun and stuff the weenie up my... Nah. She's probably one of them uptight chicks who think I'm weird. She doesn't know the problem is I'm shy. Those are my thoughts, and I can't help it. During a moment of silence, my imagination runs away with me. I don't know what to do. And why is it silence they're looking for? What good is silence? The ones being remembered are already dead. They're not going to wake up now. Why not a moment of screaming? Wouldn't that be more appropriate for dead people? Wouldn't you like to hear 60,000 fans screaming? Ah! It sure would put me in the mood for football. And one more criticism. Why honor only the dead? Why this favoritism? Why not the injured as well? There are always more injured than there are dead in any decent tragedy. What about them? And what about those who aren't dead or injured but are simply treated and released? How about, if not silence, at least a moment of muffled conversation for those who were treated and released? It's an honorable condition. Personally, I've always wanted to be treated and released. Usually I'm treated and detained. Perhaps it's for the best. Concerning this whole terrorism thing, there are some misnomers at large. One of them is domestic terrorism. When they talk about domestic terrorism, they often cite the Oklahoma City bombing. But that wasn't terrorism. Terrorism involves a series of acts intended to put a civilian population in a state of panic, fear, and uncertainty in order to achieve some political goal. Oklahoma City wasn't terrorism. It was payback, revenge. Timothy McVeigh wanted to punish the federal government for what it did at Waco and Ruby Ridge. Revenge, not terrorism. Another one, terrorism expert. Television news channels will often present some guest they identify as a terrorism expert. But you can take one look at him and see that he's clearly not a terrorism expert. He's a guy in a suit who obviously works in an office. And I say he's not a terrorism expert. You want to know who's a terrorism expert? Osama bin Laden, Ayman al-Zawahiri, the people they hang around with. Those are the terrorism experts. Has this guy in the suit ever blown anyone up? No. So why is he a terrorism expert? I'm sure the TV people would say, well, because he's made a study of terrorism. Ah, I see. So really he's an expert in the study of terrorism, the subject of terrorism. But can he make a suicide vest? Fuck no. And if he can, he should make one, put it on, and press the button. Then he'll be a real terrorism expert, like those people he now only reads about. Here's another one. Suicide bomber. Nuh-uh. Sorry to disagree. It's anything but suicide. A person who commits suicide is someone who places no value on his life. My life is worthless. I'm going to end it. These so-called suicide bombers don't feel that way. They feel their lives are worth something, and that by giving them up, they make a statement to the world, furthering a cause they believe in deeply. In their eyes, their lives, when
I never thought of that. I'm curious what he thinks they should be called.
sacrificed, have value. And by the way, the suicide bombers themselves don't call it that. In a stunning example of euphemism, they call it a sacred explosion. Holy smoke. Then there's Bush's version, homicide bombers. And in spite of what Bush has been ordered to say, they're not homicide bombers. All bombings are intended to kill people, to produce homicides. Anyone who packs a bomb with nails and bits of steel and sets it off in a public place is hoping to commit homicide. This is true of any bomb. Whether you drop it out of an airplane or leave it on a doorstep, you're hoping to kill people. That's the purpose, killing people. In the case of these so-called suicide bombs, what's different is that the people setting them off are intentionally ending their own lives in the process. That's why we confuse the act with suicide. Human shields. During bombing raids in Iraq, the media like to say that Saddam Hussein used people as human shields. That's not accurate. Although it's true they were used as shields, the fact is they were humans already. So
There's another place that gets accused of using human shields a lot.
if these humans were used as shields, they were human shields. They weren't being used as human shields. Got that? Bush calls the Al-Qaeda people cowards and says they like to hide. Well, isn't that what the American Continental Army did during the American Revolution? Our beloved patriots? They hid. They hid behind trees. They came out, killed some British soldiers, and ran away, just like Al-Qaeda. That's what you do when you're outnumbered and have less firepower than the enemy. It's called trying to win. It's not cowardly. Bill Maher may have stretched the point a bit when he said that Air Force pilots who release their bombs from hundreds of miles away are cowards. Seems to me flying combat jets doesn't attract many cowards, but it's not nearly as courageous an act as deliberately strapping a bomb to your chest and heading for the disco with no intention of dancing. I will say this. Getting out of the Vietnam War through Daddy's connections and then not living up to your end of the bargain is probably a form of cowardice. Here's another misnomer. Heroes who died for their country. The Port Authority of New York and New Jersey said that changing the name of Newark Airport to Liberty International Airport would be a way of honoring the more than 3,000 heroes who died for their country in the World Trade Center. Pardon me for pointing this out, folks, but stock traders, clerks, receptionists, cooks, waiters, and building maintenance people in the World Trade Center didn't die for their country. They died because they went to work. Not one of them would have shown up for work that day if you had told them they would die as a result. Try to get your heroes straight. Not everyone who died in 9/11 was a hero. Hero is a very special word. That's why we reserve it for certain special people. Not every fireman and policeman who was on duty that day was a hero. The ones who risked or lost their lives trying to rescue people were heroes. They acted heroically. The others probably did a good job and were very helpful. But heroes? If everyone's a hero, then the word doesn't mean much anymore. And sooner or later we'll have to give the real heroes, the heroic ones, a new name to distinguish them from the rest of the pack. Too bad superheroes is already taken. Would have been perfect. But relax, folks. If I know us, mega hero can't be too far over the horizon. Although, to be honest, I kind of like the alliteration in hyperhero. Let's shoot for that. These anti-war demonstrators are really unimpressive people. They're against war? How groundbreaking. What a courageous stand. Listen, angry asshole, pick something difficult, like religion. Why don't you get out in the street and start marching around against religion, something that's really harmful to mankind? War is simply nature's way of doing things, of keeping down the count. Religion is the problem. Get rid of religion, and you've done the planet a favor. So how about getting out there next weekend and marching around with a sign that says, ho, 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 religion must go? Come on, protesters, show some balls. I can't understand what it is people like about John Wayne movies. I think they suck. I find him inauthentic. Sometimes when I'm clicking around the channels, looking for the least objectionable program, I come across a movie scene in progress. It's in black and white, it's clearly a Western, and it looks old enough that it could actually be fun to watch. I see guys like John Ireland, Barton McLean, Ward Bond, Anthony Quinn, Charles Bronson, Dan Duryea, Thomas Mitchell, Lee Van Cleef, and Brian Donlevy shooting each other, drinking, and playing cards, and I get this great nostalgic feeling. Then John Wayne rides up, and I have to reach for the remote. It's a fucking shame. He spoils war movies in the same way. By the way, I feel the same about Jimmy Stewart. These people should not have been allowed to spoil so many perfectly good movies.
Alright, we'll call it right there. Come on. He must he must have been in a lot of moment of silences, and the way his mind works, some of the stuff he come up with. But yeah, that was part 15 of the audiobook, When Will Jesus Bring the Pork Chops? If you have any suggestions of anything you want me to check out, go ahead and leave them in the comments. Other than that, thanks for watching. Have a nice night. Stay blazing.